Hey guys, I'm Nick and welcome back to the channel. Well, we're talking about the season finale of Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episode 13, entitled Coming Home. This is the finale of the season. Was a lot more satisfying than last season's finale, I gotta say. It wrapped up the season nicely, I felt. There was a sense of grandeur, there was a sense of exploration. It was a definite improvement on last season's finale. I think it was satisfying enough that I think it ticked the boxes that everybody wanted to tick. I think in most cases, all of our characters, where they ended up, was where we pretty much wanted them to end up, I think, in the case of the season finale. I don't think there was anything that was too unresolved. But let's take a look through some of the points about our season finale of Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episode 13, and see what it had to offer. So for starters, I was a little bit confused at the start of this episode because we saw the Federation starbase at warp traveling through hyperspace or whatever, and it's like, what the hell is this? And it wasn't until I kind of went, oh, okay, hang on, it's the Federation starbase. We're used to seeing it sitting vertically, and it was traveling through hyperspace like this. I just assumed it was like a starbase. I didn't think it kind of had, warp engines and stuff on it, and it could, transfer itself into a ship. But I suppose we haven't sort of seen that really before, with starbases being able to travel at warp and change location. And I guess it makes sense that it was that configuration based on the fact that the Federation was a bit disbanded. They had to kind of travel around and, keep a bit secret and everything. So I suppose that, is a logical configuration. And I guess, a good 32nd century upgrade to starbase technology. We got Tilly back again for our season finale. She was there helping Vance coordinate the evacuation efforts of Earth and everything, getting all of the various ships launched and off the planet so that they could rescue as many people as possible because of the impending DMA hitting the planet. I'm glad we got a little bit of a cut back and forth, I think, in terms of this last episode to what was going on Earth with the evacuation efforts, and also what was going on in Discovery and on Bookship in terms of the actual negotiations and trying to appease the 10C into switching off the DMA. This episode saw a nice conclusion to the whole Saru and Tarina arc. We had Tarina mind melding with the 10C to try to make contact and kind of let them know their intentions and everything. And we found out that they're, of sort of one mind, a little bit like the Borg, but not, as President Rillick pointed out. And they obviously had trouble grasping the concept of individualism and everything, which is what they had to kind of explain to get the point across to them. We had that nice scene with Saru and Tarina in sickbay where she'd sort of had a bit of a blood nose because of the mind meld. There's a few little moments, very sweet moments in this episode, which nicely kind of concluded the whole Saru-Tarina story arc with them kind of holding hands in the end, and Tarina telling Saru not to call her, Madam President anymore, to call her Tarina. I was wondering whether they were going to get a kiss or something going on in this last episode, but we just had the hand holding going on here. I'm not sure how that would kind of play out because Vulcans aren't, the most emotional people, I guess. So it's not like Tarina would certainly go in for the smooch on Saru, and Saru is a gentleman as well. I don't think he would kind of go there as well. Whether we're going to see that next season, and that kind of progress a little bit further down that road, I'm not sure. But I think certainly the relationship settled in a very nice place at the end of this episode, with them holding hands and everything, and calling each other by first names and that sort of, and more of a verbalization of their feelings towards one another. I think Ndoye's character arc in this episode was a little bit back and forth. Obviously, we had her fessing up very early in the episode that she was the one that basically allowed Book and Taka to do what they did with the controller of the DMA. She kind of fessed up to her involvement there and aiding and abetting these criminal activities that they were involved in. And they kind of confined her to quarters, but then she sort of said, if you need my help, be sure to ask. And then, like, literally within what seemed like minutes of that occurring, it's like, oh yeah, let's just pull Ndoye out of the bridge and get her tactical advice on, on how to take out Book's ship and take out Taka. Sort of like, oh, that was quick. They kind of forgot about her, insurrection quite quickly. And then at the end of this episode, you know, the president president of Earth is praising Ndoye, you know, all this sort of thing. It's like, hang on, shouldn't she be arrested? Shouldn't she be, you know, at least be demoted or something? You know, it sort of felt like her insurrection, you know, aiding and abetting the actions of Book and Taka went completely unnoticed at the end of this episode. Like, obviously, Book got essentially put into custody to do community service. So Book's now at least paying for his crimes by doing community service. But it seemed like that there was almost zero repercussions whatsoever for Ndoye in terms of her actions. And I thought, well, surely at the very least, I think she should have been demoted or have her position stripped from her or something to that effect. What she did on the Discovery was akin to what sort of, you know, Book and Taka were doing, you know, and it was all unauthorized. It was her taking matters into her own hands, the same that Taka took matters into his own hands, sort of thing. So in some ways, I think Ndoye should have been reprimanded significantly more than what she was. I think it was just all a big session of back patting at the end saying, oh, well done, everybody. It's like, hang on, has everyone forgotten that she kind of, you know, betrayed everybody? It seemed didn't quite sit right with me. I think the scenes with Vance and Tilly evacuating the planet and everything and coordinating with all the starships was kind of cool to see that going on in this episode. And there was some nice shout outs to starships such as the USS Nog and also I think it was the USS Yelchin or something as well. So we had kind of homages to Aaron Eisenberg, who played Nog, who we lost last year, and also Anton Yelchin, who played Chekhov in the Star Trek feature films or whatever, who we lost a couple of years ago as well. I think in terms of character arcs and sort of Book's involvement at the end with the 10C, I think I would have felt probably a little better if Book had have remained dead. I think his actions were probably a little bit hard to come back from. And I think the fact that he's off doing community service on some planet, you know, I think it probably would have been better if he just had have remained dead with Taka as part of his penance for what he did there. I think probably bringing him back, we didn't benefit by anything. You know, yes, there was a sort of a sweet scene with him and Burnham being reunited and everything, but I think considering he's sort of gone off anyway to do community service, I think it probably would have been a more satisfying conclusion if he'd gone down with Taka with the destruction of Book's ship in this episode. I also am a little bit surprised that his ability to talk to creatures wasn't more pivotal in the conclusion of this episode. Obviously, there was the moment where he's talking to the 10C and his little spots are appearing on his forehead and the 10C are mirroring his forehead spots back to him. But considering we kind of haven't seen Book use his powers this season, they were kind of, you know, shown quite a bit last season, I honestly would have thought as a conclusion and as also as a bit of a redemption that his abilities were going to become more pivotal in the final moments of getting the 10C to back down by using his ability to talk to creatures that he has exhibited in episodes before. But it wasn't really used to the effect that I think it probably could have been used. And I think if it was, it probably would have redeemed him a little bit more so that the bringing of him back by the 10C had a bit more of a payoff, I think. Just bringing him back so we can have a cuddle with Burnham wasn't big enough. I think he needed to perhaps be more of a solution by, you know, he transmits, you know, his grief through his, you know, sensory abilities, and the 10C are finally able to clearly see what happened to Quajan and all that sort of thing, and, you know, and then therefore back down. I think it probably wasn't used as extensively as it could have been as a final kind of get out of jail free card. This episode was considerably emotional in a lot of places. I think, you know, we had a lot of emotional scenes with Tarina and Saru. We had Burnham crying about the loss of Book. We had Taka crying because he's not going to see Oros again. We had everybody coming at the end with Tilly and everybody's hugging and kissing and crying, and it was all very, very emotional. I mean, Discovery tends to be quite an emotionally based show, but there was even a few moments by its usual standards that I felt it's almost going a bit too far now. I think having Burnham absolutely weeping and breaking down on the bridge when she thought Book was lost. We've obviously had captains in Starfleet lose members of the crew before, taken the loss of other characters that have meant quite a large deal to captains and so forth. We haven't seen anybody kind of weep so uncontrollably as Burnham did at the end of this episode. And I think, she did kind of pull it in a little bit at the end, but I think she kind of let herself go a little bit too far, I think, in terms of her level of grief. Come on, you're meant to be the captain of the starship here. You got to keep your emotions a little bit more in check for the sake of the crew and the sake of the mission. I don't ever recall seeing Picard or Sisko or Janeway or Archer or anybody, weeping so uncontrollably right in the captain's chair at the loss of a crew member. We've had, whether it's Trip or Dax, Spock, or Tasha Yar, there's been plenty of characters that have meant a lot to the crew that have been lost over the course of Star Trek. But I think Burnham's response was probably a little bit more over the top than what we've seen in the past. And furthering on that element of sort of emotional response, we obviously at the end had everybody, hugging and kissing and Tilly's back and everyone's in the bar and everybody's in a ring around the rosy kind of circle and jumping up and down. It's like, give me a break. I understand a bit of hugging and a bit of back patting, but everybody getting in a big circle and jumping up and down, smiling, that was just possibly just a tiny bit over the top, even though they had just saved Earth. Seriously, can you imagine Picard getting in a big ring circle with his crew and jumping up and down and hugging and kissing them? No, you can't. And I don't think of any other, Starfleet crew that would, do that. I think the end of this episode where Earth joined the Federation was a really nice moment here, particularly with Stacey Abrams playing the Earth president. That was a kind of a bit of a surprise. Obviously, she's a prominent figure in the US politics recently. So I thought this appearance by her was a nice appearance at the end of this episode. I thought, oh, that's kind of cute that they gave her a role. And apparently, she's a big Star Trek fan. I thought that was an interesting and nice addition to the finale here, making her the Earth president. All in all, look, I thought this was a significant improvement as far as season finales go. I think the grandeur and the scale of the 10C, seeing these giant big, aliens there hovering with all these weird kind of floating gas pods and everything. We've never sort of seen the Federation and Starfleet kind of communicate with, aliens this alien very often. Normally it's humanoids with bumpy foreheads. But this was, a significant departure from the usual. It had a very grand scale. The scope and scale of communicating at the end there with the 10C, I think was really nice moment and a lot more satisfying than last season's boy who cried for his mum conclusion to last season. So I definitely, for that reason, give this season finale, more points than last season finale. And I really hope that next season we see something a little bit different than a galaxy-ending phenomenon being the threat, because obviously last season we had the burn and solving the burn, which was a galactic catastrophic event, and this season we had the 10C and the DMA, which was a galactic wide catastrophic event. So hopefully we get something a little bit different with next season, because otherwise it's sort of, how many times can we have galactic ending events that they have to kind of solve? I think we've been there and done that now. Maybe let's try to scale it down and get back to, rebuilding the Federation and everything with all of the different planets and what's going on with that. So let's, if anything, I think next season would benefit by scaling it down a little bit than trying to go massive scale kind of thing, if you know what I mean. Guys, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. Let me know what you thought of this season finale of Star Trek Discovery Season 4. Leave a super thanks if you're able to. It really helps the channel out. Much appreciated. Like and comment. Subscribe if you haven't already done so, and please check out my merch in the merch store where you can pick up these cool Star Trek themed t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, caps. All of this stuff is there, and at the moment it's free shipping, so be sure to take advantage of that. And I'll see you guys very soon for my next video. I'll catch you soon.